You ever feel like you give everything in a relationship, your time, your heart, your patience, and still end up feeling invisible? Like no matter how much you love someone, it's just not enough. I've been there, and honestly, it took me a long time to realize the problem wasn't them. It was something I didn't want to face in myself. There was this one relationship I poured myself into. I thought if I just loved harder, tried more, made fewer mistakes, they'd finally see me, finally choose me. But it always felt like I was chasing something just out of reach. I'd get breadcrumbs, a little affection here and there, and I'd convince myself that meant something, that it was worth it. But inside, I felt hollow, like I was constantly trying to prove I was lovable. At some point, I started asking the hard questions. Why do I keep ending up in these dynamics? Why does love feel like a battle? And why, no matter what I do I feel like I'm not enough? That's when I stumbled on something that changed everything. Carl Jung talked about this idea of the unconscious shaping our reality. He said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate." That line hit me like a punch to the chest. I realized I wasn't just unlucky in love, I was repeating a pattern that lived deep inside me. It was like holding up a mirror and finally seeing the truth. I didn't believe I was worthy of real unconditional love. Not really. And so I kept attracting people and situations that mirrored that back to me. People who couldn't choose me, people who made me feel like I had to earn every scrap of attention. It's strange, isn't it? We think the world is doing something to us, but often it's just reflecting how we treat ourselves. I used to think love was something outside of me, something I had to chase, win, or deserve. But looking back, I can see how deeply I was craving someone to love me in a way I hadn't yet learned to love myself. The truth is, I didn't feel enough on my own. And because of that, I kept searching for someone to complete me, someone to make me feel special, someone to fill that aching space inside. But no one ever could. Not really. Not in a lasting way. The affection always faded, or I'd end up anxious and insecure, trying to hold on to something that was slipping through my fingers. And then I'd wonder, what's wrong with me? Turns out nothing was wrong with me, but a lot was wounded. I had wounds I hadn't faced, beliefs I hadn't questioned. I thought love was about pleasing others, being perfect, never needing too much. I thought if I could just be everything someone wanted, they'd finally stay. But what I didn't realize was that I was abandoning myself over and over in the process. And the universe, it has a way of trying to wake us up. Every relationship I attracted was showing me something about myself I didn't want to look at. My fear of abandonment, my need for approval, my unhealed shame. It all kept playing out like a broken record, and I kept calling it love. But real love, it doesn't make you feel small. It doesn't keep you guessing. It doesn't make you feel like you have to disappear just to be worthy. What I've come to see is that the love I was desperately chasing was really a love I needed to find within. I didn't want to hear that at first. It sounded too cliché. But it's true. Until I started turning inward and facing the parts of me I'd been running from, nothing changed. No partner could fix the ache. No compliment could heal the wound. It's like looking into a mirror that doesn't lie. Painful, but necessary. And maybe that's where the healing begins. With the courage to see yourself clearly, not through the lens of who you think you need to be, but through the truth of who you already are. Not perfect, not always confident, but whole. Because here's the thing, people will treat you the way you teach them to. If you believe you're not worthy of deep, steady love, you'll keep settling for half love. You'll keep choosing people who make you feel like you have to prove your worth. But once you start believing, really believing that you're enough, the entire landscape changes. You stop needing to chase. You stop bending over backwards. You stop confusing emotional chaos for connection. You begin to choose differently. You begin to love differently. And that's where I want to take you in this story. Not just to the hurt, but to the healing, to the shift that happens when you stop running and start listening, when you stop asking the world to validate you and start doing the radical, uncomfortable work of accepting yourself fully. So if you've ever felt unloved or unchosen, I want you to know you're not alone. But more importantly, you're not broken. There's just something inside you waiting to be seen, to be loved by you first. You know, when I started digging into where all this came from, this ache for approval, the fear of not being enough, it led me straight back to childhood. And I don't mean that in some overly dramatic way. I mean it in the quiet, subtle patterns that shape us before we even know what shaping is. I remember trying so hard to be the good kid. You probably know the role. Don't cry too much, don't ask for too much, smile when things hurt, make everyone else comfortable. I got praise when I performed well, when I did what was expected, and when I didn't, the love felt distant, conditional, fragile. Nobody said it outright, of course, but it was always there, like a background noise you stop noticing, until you realize you've been dancing to its rhythm your whole life. Somewhere along the line, I absorbed this idea. Love is something you earn. It's not just me. A lot of people carry this. If love was given only when you behaved, excelled, stayed quiet, or pleased others, then deep down you start believing that being loved means being someone you're not. You become hyper-aware of how to be acceptable. You trade authenticity for approval, again and again. And the worst part, you grow up and keep doing it. You try to be the perfect partner, the emotional caretaker, the one who holds it all together, just hoping that maybe this time someone will stay. But it's exhausting, isn't it? And it creates this dangerous loop, because when love feels earned, you can never fully relax into it. You're always scanning, always performing, always terrified that one wrong step will make it disappear. So even when someone does love you, you don't quite trust it. You keep bracing for the moment it fades. Looking back now, I see how much of my self-worth was tied to how useful or easy to love I could be. I didn't know how to just be me and believe that was enough. I thought love was a reward for being good, not a birthright. And that messes with your head, because the parts of you that don't fit that good image, the anger, the sadness, the fear, the need, you push those down. You exile them. You pretend they don't exist, but they do. And they don't disappear just because you ignore them. Carl Jung called this the shadow, the parts of us we hide because we think they make us unlovable. But what no one told us growing up is that hiding parts of yourself doesn't make you more lovable. It makes you more afraid, more fragmented, more lonely. I spent years trying to be everything for everyone, and I didn't realize how deeply I was abandoning myself. I thought if I could just prove my worth, someone would finally give me the love I'd been aching for since I was a kid. But love that has to be earned will never feel safe. Because even if someone gives it to you, you'll always be afraid they'll take it away. And that fear, it eats at you. So now I'm learning to do something radical. I'm learning to give myself what I've been begging others for. I'm learning to sit with the younger version of me, the one who just wanted to be held without conditions, and tell them, you don't have to earn it anymore. You don't have to perform. I see you. I love you, all of you. And let me tell you, it's not easy. It feels strange, awkward even, like speaking a language I was never taught. But it's real, and it's healing. Because the truth is, the version of you that had to survive your childhood did exactly what they needed to do to make it through. But now you're grown. You can choose differently. You don't have to keep proving your worth. You can begin to believe in it instead. You're not here to be perfect. You're here to be whole. And wholeness includes the messy parts, the ones you've been hiding, the ones you thought made you too much or not enough. All of it belongs. The moment you start to believe that, even a little, the world starts reflecting it back to you. So if you've been living under the weight of conditional love, if you're tired of shrinking, performing, or endlessly giving while feeling empty, I want you to know this. You were never too much. You were never not enough. You were just trying to survive in a world that made you think love had to be earned. But now, maybe for the first time, you get to do it differently. There's a strange kind of grief that comes with realizing you've been rejecting yourself for years without even knowing it. It's not loud, not dramatic, it's quiet, like a slow ache in your chest when you're alone, like the silence after you've laughed too hard at a joke that didn't feel right. You sense something's missing, but can't quite name it. For me, it was this moment, maybe you've had one like it, where I realized I'd spent so much of my life trying to be what I thought others wanted, that I had no idea who I really was. Not under the pleasing, not under the caretaking, not under the smiles I wore like armor. And the scary part, I thought that was love. I thought shrinking, bending, compromising, always being the one to forgive, to try harder, to understand meant I was loving well. But it wasn't love. It was fear dressed up like devotion. I was afraid of being left, afraid of being unchosen, afraid of being too messy, too much. So I kept trying to be easy to love. And every time I did that, I pushed parts of myself deeper into the shadows. Carl Jung's idea of the shadow started making more sense to me around then. He said the shadow is everything we refuse to acknowledge about ourselves. The anger, the jealousy, the loneliness, the hunger for affection, the fear of being unlovable. We stuff all of it down, hide it behind politeness, behind perfectionism, behind emotional self-control. But here's the thing, those parts don't disappear. They wait, they ache, and eventually they show up in our relationships. Not directly, but through anxiety, through neediness, through our attraction to people who reflect our wounds. It's like we're unconsciously choosing people who reinforce the exact stories we secretly believe about ourselves. I'm not worthy. I'm not enough. If I'm not perfect, I'll be left. I kept ending up with partners who couldn't fully choose me, emotionally unavailable, distant, hot, and cold. And every time it happened, it confirmed what I believed underneath. I must not be lovable the way I am. I must have to work harder, be better. But what if it was never about being better? What if the problem wasn't that I was too much, but that I'd learned to be less? What if the ache I kept trying to fix in others was really a cry from the parts of me I had buried? That realization hit me like a wave, and I'll be honest, it didn't feel empowering. It felt like falling apart, like my entire sense of self was unraveling. But looking back, that breakdown was the beginning of a breakthrough. Because for the first time, I started to let those hidden parts speak. The anger, the sadness, the fear. I stopped judging them. I listened. And you know what I heard beneath it all? I just want to be accepted, fully as I am. That voice, raw, scared, honest, it didn't want to be fixed. It wanted to be held. It wanted to be seen. And I had spent years turning away from it, thinking I was doing the right thing by being strong, composed, lovable. But what if real strength is letting yourself be fully seen, even in the mess? That's when I started the slow work of integrating my shadow, not fixing it, not overcoming it, just seeing it, accepting it, making space for it at the table. And something surprising happened. The more I stopped rejecting myself, the less I felt the need to chase love. The more I allowed my vulnerability to exist, the less I was attracted to people who made me feel unsafe. It's like when you stop abandoning yourself, you stop tolerating relationships that do the same. And I'm not saying it's easy. There are still moments where the old patterns whisper, hide that part, be quieter, be easier. but I'm learning to recognize those voices for what they are. Echoes from a time when I thought love had to be earned by erasing who I was. Now I try to remind myself daily, I don't have to be less to be loved. I don't have to dim my emotions to be safe. I don't have to betray myself to belong. You don't either. The parts you think make you unlovable, the ones you've shoved into the dark, are often the most beautiful parts of you. The raw, unfiltered truth of who you are is not your shame, it's your power. And the more you begin to accept those pieces, the more whole you become, the less desperate you feel, the more peaceful your heart feels when it's quiet. Because there's nothing more freeing than no longer needing to be anything other than exactly who you are. You ever notice how the same kind of pain keeps showing up, just wearing a different face? I didn't at first. I kept thinking each heartbreak was unique, each disappointment some unfortunate coincidence, but eventually I couldn't ignore the pattern. The same feelings of not being seen, the same gut-level fear of being left, the same moment where I realized I was giving everything and still feeling empty. It hit me one night, lying awake at 2 a.m., replaying a conversation that left me feeling like I had to apologize for wanting closeness again. And something in me finally asked, not in anger, but in exhaustion, why does this keep happening? That was the turning point, because once you start asking that kind of question, not about them, but about you, everything changes. It's painful at first, like tearing away something you clung to for safety, but underneath the pain is a kind of freedom you forgot was possible. I started writing down the patterns, not to blame myself, but to understand. Over and over, I saw the same story. I'd fall for someone who couldn't fully show up. I'd convince myself if I just gave a little more, they'd come closer. When they pulled away, I'd blame myself for needing too much. Then I'd shrink, try to be easier, quieter, less, until I disappeared. It was always the same story, just a different person, and I finally had to admit, the common denominator was me, but not in a shameful way. It wasn't that I was broken, it was that I had been taught to abandon myself in order to be loved. That belief was driving everything. That's when I knew if I didn't shift my inner world, nothing outside would ever truly change. So I began the real work, the kind that isn't about fixing yourself, but about remembering yourself. I looked back at the stories I was carrying, that love has to be earned, that I'm too much, that needing someone makes me weak. Where did they come from? Who told me that love disappears when you're honest? And slowly, I started to rewrite those stories. Not overnight, not with some magical affirmation, but through small, deliberate choices, like honoring my feelings even when they were messy, like saying no when something felt wrong, even if it meant disappointing someone, like recognizing that the love I give myself sets the tone for the love I accept from others. That part was hard, because I had to let go of people who couldn't meet me where I was going. I had to choose solitude over performance, wholeness over validation. I had to trust that real love wouldn't ask me to abandon myself to feel safe. And that's scary. It means standing in the middle of your life and saying, I will no longer betray myself for love. It means breaking the cycle, even when your whole nervous system is screaming, but this is how we survive. But survival is not the same as living and healing. Healing is choosing to stop repeating pain just because it's familiar. So here's what I did next. Maybe it'll help you too. I stopped asking if someone loved me and started asking if I loved who I became around them. That question changed everything, because when you're in a pattern of self-abandonment, you can fall in love with people who reflect your wounds more than your worth. But once you start showing up for yourself, fully and without apology, you begin attracting people who meet you in your wholeness, not your emptiness. It's a quieter kind of love. Less fireworks, more warmth, less anxiety, more peace. less proving, more being. And that's the shift, when you stop seeing love as something to win and start seeing it as something to share. When you stop asking the world to give you permission to feel whole, and you start giving it to yourself. That's where real change begins. There's this moment in healing that feels like standing at the edge of a cliff. Wind in your face, heart pounding, and nothing beneath your feet but the unknown. And the leap you're being asked to take, it's not into another person. It's not into some ideal future. It's into yourself. I reached that edge the day I realized I wasn't broken, I was fragmented, like pieces of me had been scattered along the road of people-pleasing, of chasing validation, of trying to be enough for others. I had given away so much of myself just trying to feel whole. But wholeness was never something others could give me. It had to come from within. That's when the real work started, integration. Not just healing the wounds, but welcoming back the parts of me I had exiled. The emotional, raw, chaotic, beautiful parts, the ones I thought made me too much. The ones I thought I had to suppress to be loved. Carl Jung's shadow, remember that? I used to think the shadow was just where we hid our pain, but now I see it differently. The shadow holds power. It holds everything we've denied. Yes, the fear and shame, but also the passion, the boundaries, the fire we buried to make others comfortable. And integrating it isn't about becoming someone else. It's about becoming whole again. I remember sitting alone one night and saying out loud, "You're allowed to feel this." I was talking to the part of me that had always felt needy, the part I used to silence, afraid it would scare people away. But instead of shaming it, I listened. And that voice inside said something simple. I just want to be loved without conditions. God, that hit hard, because that's all any of us really want, isn't it? To be held, seen, known, not for what we do, but for who we are. And the tragedy is, we've been taught to earn love by cutting pieces of ourselves off, by performing, by hiding, but no more. I started asking myself, what have I been hiding in order to be accepted? What emotions do I silence because I'm afraid they'll make me unlovable? And little by little, I stopped hiding. I let my anger speak, not to lash out, but to set boundaries. I let my sadness breathe, not to drown in it, but to honor what hurt. I let myself want things, need things, without shame. And in doing that, I began to feel whole. Not perfect, not healed in some Instagrammable way, but real. And that's where love lives. In the real, in the unfiltered, in the messy middle between fear and freedom. It's funny, once I started accepting myself, truly accepting, I stopped being so hungry for others to do it. Their approval mattered less. Their distance didn't feel like a death sentence. I didn't need someone to fill the gaps in me anymore because I wasn't full of holes. I was full of rediscovered parts. And the more I embraced those parts, the more I noticed something beautiful. I began to attract people who recognized me, not just the mask, not just the smile, but the soul underneath. That's what integration does. It clears the fog between you and your truth. It allows you to stop performing and start connecting, not from a place of needing to be loved, but from the joy of being known. If no one's ever told you this, let me. The parts of you you've been taught to hide, they're not your weakness. They're your way home. Wholeness isn't about fixing what's broken. It's about reclaiming what you gave up to survive. And once you start doing that, once you start showing up as your full self, shadow and all, you'll stop settling for relationships that ask you to shrink. You'll stop mistaking peace for boredom and start recognizing it as safety. You'll stop chasing love and start being it, and that changes everything. You know what no one tells you, that even after all the insight, all the journaling, all the healing, you'll still be afraid sometimes. Afraid to open your heart again. Afraid to trust. Afraid to love. I thought that once I understood my patterns, once I reclaimed my worth, the fear would go away. But fear doesn't vanish. It just shows up in new ways. Quieter maybe, but still present. Especially when you start to love without the old armor. Because loving without fear means letting go of control. It means no longer scanning for warning signs in every word, every silence. It means not letting the past dictate the present. And that is terrifying. There was someone after I'd done a lot of inner work who saw me in a way I wasn't used to. No games, no emotional distance, no power struggle, just presence, steadiness, kindness. And I didn't trust it, not at first. Every part of me that had learned love equals anxiety started waiting for the catch. I kept looking for signs it would fall apart. I picked at the connection, not because it was wrong, but because it was safe. And safe felt unfamiliar. Isn't that wild? Sometimes we reject the very thing we've been praying for, simply because it doesn't match our old wounds. That's when I realized fear doesn't just live in pain, it also lives in peace, because peace means letting go of the hypervigilance, of the need to manage everything, of the belief that love must be earned or chased or controlled. And when you let go of that, you have to trust, not just the other person, but yourself. You have to trust your intuition, trust that you can survive disappointment, trust that love doesn't mean losing yourself, trust that even if someone leaves, it won't destroy you, because you no longer abandon you. That kind of trust doesn't come easy. It's a muscle, and I've learned to build it by doing the scary thing, staying open, not wide open, just enough to stay present, enough to notice when I'm shrinking back into old defenses, enough to say, I'm afraid, and not judge myself for it, because fear doesn't mean you're not ready. It means you're walking into new territory, one where love isn't a transaction, one where it doesn't demand your silence, your shape-shifting, your soul. This kind of love, it's softer, quieter, more honest. It doesn't burn with urgency. It warms you slowly like morning light through the window. And it's worth protecting, not by building walls, but by deepening your roots. I started telling myself, love is a risk, but so is hiding. And I've hidden for long enough. Now I want to love not because I need someone to fix me, but because I want to share what I've built inside. I want to give from overflow, not from scarcity. And when fear whispers, what if you get hurt again? I answer, then I'll grieve and I'll heal. But I won't stop showing up, because this heart of mine, it's finally becoming my home. And it deserves to be lived in fully, not half-closed out of fear. So if you're afraid to love again, if your heart feels like a door stuck between open and shut, please know this. You don't have to fling it wide open all at once. But don't bolt it shut either. Crack it open. Let light in. Let love in, little by little. You've already survived the hardest parts. Now it's time to live. There was a time when I thought love meant needing someone. Like really needing them. Aching for their attention, their affection, their presence, just to feel okay. I thought that was proof of how deeply I could care. I thought the hunger was love, but it wasn't. It was emptiness. And the truth I didn't want to admit back then was this: the more I needed love from someone else, the less I was giving it to myself. That realization didn't come easy. It came through 100 quiet heartbreaks, not the dramatic kind. The kind where you realize you've abandoned your own heart again, hoping someone else would carry it better than you did. And eventually, something in me broke. But not in a bad way, in a freeing way, like a chain snapping, like an illusion collapsing. I remember waking up one day, no big epiphany, just this calm understanding. I don't want to need love anymore. I want to become it. So I started asking a different question. What would it look like if I stopped chasing love and started radiating it? Not performatively, not to get it back, just because it was already in me and it wanted to move. It changed everything. I started showing up to my own life, not as someone waiting to be chosen, but as someone who had already chosen themselves. I cooked for myself like I was someone worth caring for. I sat in silence and let it be peaceful instead of empty. I filled my days with small joys, sunlight, books, laughter, music, and let them count. I stopped waiting for someone to make me feel alive, and when I loved others, it came from a place that wasn't about needing anything in return. It was cleaner, lighter, there was no panic in it, no grasping, just presence, generosity, wholeness. It's funny. When you stop needing love, love finds you in the most unexpected places, in a stranger's kindness, in the way your own breath steadies you, in a friend's eyes when they say, "I see you," in the mirror when you can finally say, "I love who I'm becoming," and mean it. This is what it means to stop chasing and start embodying, to love not as a question but as an answer. And look, I'm not saying I've mastered it. I still stumble. I still have moments where the old neediness whispers in my ear, but now I catch it, I breathe through it, I return to myself. Because the difference now is, I'm not searching for someone to complete me. I already feel whole. I don't need love to save me. I just want to share it. And that shift, that's the kind of love that lasts, because it's not dependent on anyone else's approval, attention, or promises. It lives in you, moves through you, and invites others not to fill a void, but to join a fullness. That's the love I believe in now. The kind that doesn't beg, doesn't chase, doesn't collapse. The kind that stands tall, arms open, heart steady. So if you've been chasing love, trying to earn it, trying to prove you're worthy, maybe it's time to stop running. Maybe it's time to come home to yourself, to fill the space inside with your own presence, to meet the eyes in the mirror with tenderness instead of criticism, to whisper to the younger version of you, "You don't have to try so hard anymore." Because love isn't something out there you need to find. It's something in here you're ready to remember. And once you do, everything changes.